Welcome to the Free Flowing Health Podcast, where we invite you to embark on a transformative journey towards a healthier, happier, more fulfilling life. Each episode brings you a dynamic exploration of the diverse aspects of health, wellness, and healing. I'm your host, Lisa Brown. Join me as I engage in intimate conversations with inspirational guests who share their unique stories and insights. These conversations will take you beyond conventional thinking, encouraging you to break free from the constraints of a one-size-fits-all healing approach. Our mission is to empower you with the knowledge, tools, and motivation needed to inspire real change. Are you ready? Let's dive in. All right. Welcome back to the Free Flowing Health Podcast. Today's very special guest is co-owner of Live Resilient Southwest Florida, Jason Wynns. He's a nutritional therapy practitioner and strength and conditioning coach. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Hey, good to be here. Thank you.
Did I miss anything? Anything you'd like to add?
No, that's pretty good. That's me for the most part.
So I've been a resident of Southwest Florida just for a few years. I'm originally from New York City, and it's cool to come across, like-minded people. I think we initially met maybe a couple of years at this point on Instagram. I checked out your wellness spa, which we'll get into in a minute, and all the different modalities that you guys have to offer. The energy was electric. You and your partner, Angie, just amazing human beings. So I love this opportunity just to dive a little deeper into your unique story, how this concept came to be, and then we can discuss the benefits of the different things that you guys offer.
Sure. Well, yeah, I would love to go over it. So I have Live Resilient. Think about it as like a holistic kind of wellness spa, but it kind of was birthed out of Apex Physical Therapy, which is right next door. Angie's the owner of Apex Physical Therapy, and I was working over at Apex Physical Therapy doing some strength and conditioning stuff, which I still do. And what we wanted to do was provide opportunities to plug more of the holes that come from pain management and overall wellness. So we started to think about what would be some other solutions to start to prioritize to help. We understand that pain is multifactorial and it's coming from all different angles. And so if we can help to kind of plug some of those holes, that would be helpful. So some of the things that we do at Live Resilient, we have nutritional therapy. I use like DNA data to kind of help further nuance some of the strategies with supplements and foods. We have sauna, cold plunge combo. We call our fire and ice sessions, red light therapy. And then we have the sensory deprivation float tank as well.
My favorite.
Yeah, that's a pretty unique environment. So it's really, really cool.
So on this topic of pain and stress management, I know we live in a convenient society. Technology is both a blessing and a burden, but I feel like it's contribute to people being sedentary, especially the younger population. And I'm sure in the physical therapy clinic, you guys come across all sorts of injuries or people just trying to recover from something. So I love the holistic approach and, viewing the human vessel, mind, body, and spirit approach and working on healing naturally. So trying to move away from, the traditional conventional drugs or maybe even surgery, if it can be prevented. So can you speak to that just a little bit and how some of these therapies might help, and even what you do as a strength and conditioning coach or Angie does as a doctor of physical therapy?
Yeah. So you're definitely right with the increase in technology and increase with the the environment that we live in. It comes with some challenges, but what it also comes with is the solutions to some of these challenges as well. So so that's what we're trying to kind of accumulate and bring to the people is like, all right, although our climate is continually changing, so are the strategies that help us to overcome them. So what we want to do is help to people to see that some of these strategies are at our disposal, and so what we brought in the things that we think are most helpful. From the physical therapy side, using using things like the NuFit, which is a direct current stimulus device. We have localized cryotherapy over there. They do dry needling. Obviously, the manual therapy and the strength and conditioning stuff is all part of it. And definitely, what we try to do is manage it from any place that people are at. So, some people might come in and they start with an injury, or they're rehabbing from an injury. And as they progress to a place where they might, get discharged, what we do is we use our performance coaches, our strength and conditioning coaches, to help strengthen some of the areas that, maybe got them in there in the first place. And then we can start to assess some of the lifestyle practices that may be helpful in preventative measures as well. If they're asking a lot of their body, maybe coming in and hitting the sauna cold plunge combo is something that's beneficial for you. If it's kind of a stress induced kind of injury, which, a lot of tensions and stuff happen to be, coming over and floating once a week might be beneficial for that. The red light is helpful for expediting the healing process. And then obviously the nutrition plays a big part of it as well. Making sure that your body has what it needs to operate, effectively and efficiently and optimally.
And I like that you mentioned that you go off DNA testing. Is it? I'm always about, a big supporter of optimizing wellness. I just got a full blood panel done. I got a DNA testing, so I'm waiting for the results as we speak. So I'm taking part in this 12-week challenge, and we're looking at 10 different factors that contribute to longevity, including VO2 max, circumference test. I got a DEXA fit scan, so lots of empirical evidence and data to support my journey towards optimizing my health, because wherever we are, we can always improve and do better. But I think it's really important to look at the data, to look at the numbers, and not just throw darts into the air and hope that, okay, I'm just gonna improve my well-being. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, that's definitely it, especially when it comes to supplements. I mean, you can read about ABC supplement and you'll find a ton of great benefits to them. And so a world with infinite options in terms of supplements and strategies, like how do we nuance that down to something that might be beneficial for us? I think the DNA testing is one way to do that. I think it can be helpful in understanding what pathways are best to support, where you might have some weak spots, or just, everyone's a little bit different. And so I think that's a pretty potent strategy to kind of plug some of those holes and at least give you a better idea as to, what to aim towards. Now, like, I think health and wellness and life in general is a little bit of a long-term science experiment. So
Yeah.
although it's
Yep.
not like a although it's not
Ever
like
evolving, ever evolving. Yep.
yeah. Yeah. So although it's not written instructions, for like this is what you need, it gives you the a little bit more options as to what might be more useful for you.
And then there's there's the general benefits that we can receive from, the basic suggestions of whatever it is, 150 minutes of high intensity cardio per week, maybe, cold plunging if you don't have any contraindications, sauna, the float spa. So let's dive into each one of those recovery modalities that you guys offer at the spa and just pick them apart individually, and just, tell our listeners what they're all about, what the experience is like, maybe the impact that it's had on some of the clients or even in your own life.
Sure. Yeah, I guess we can start with the fire and ice room, the sauna cold plunge combo. Um, so I think the sauna is really beneficial in terms of dealing with some of the environmental exposures that it kind of come with living in today's world. A lot of the issues tend to be derived from some of these things that we come into the contact with, the heavy metals, the plastics of the
Mhm.
world, the pollution in the air, mold. These things are like pretty root health issues. And so I think sauna can be helpful in terms of mobilizing and excreting some of these things through sweat pathways. Some heavy metals are preferentially excreted through sweat, so I think it's a good option to be doing. Um, in addition, some people need to do so in a more passive manner. Obviously you can do so from, going on walks or running outside, or, working out of the gym, and there's other ways to kind of make sure that you're hitting that checkpoint. But in a more passive manner, you're getting some of those uh, workout benefits as well from sitting in a sauna, the heat shock proteins, the increase in the heart rate, the blood vessel dilation. So it almost mimics a workout in a way by sitting in there. So
It's not a replacement, right, for working out?
no, yeah, no, I don't think it's a replacement. But for someone who is, maybe digging themselves out of a hole, and
Right.
they're minimal in terms of their movement capabilities.
Mobility, yeah.
Yeah. So obviously like starting off with walking and stuff, but you're going to get a much better sweat sitting in a sauna than probably you are, although it is Southwest Florida, you're going to definitely sweat in the summer.
And now you guys have an infrared sauna, is that correct?
Yeah, we have a full spectrum infrared sauna, so you're getting some of the beneficial light wavelength, infrared and near infrared wavelengths, but we also do have a red light therapy bed, or a panel. So it's a little bit more concentrated, directed version of that. Part of the reasoning for that is I think in a sauna, you're probably going to lose some of that intensity based off just kind of where you're sitting, the distance away from the infrared panels.
Mhm.
Um, and so we do have a red light therapy panel, and I think that's pretty helpful for like stimulating the mitochondria to produce ATP, which is obviously going to have helpful benefits across the board with any sort of health issue. So it's been studied with eye health, brain health, skin health. Um, I find it helpful for gut health benefits. And what it really is also helpful for is cueing circadian rhythms. Uh,
Mhm.
you're getting a lot of the beneficial light that you might see in sunset, sunrise, in a more concentrated form. So that was one of the things that I started using as kind of my wind down routine. Maybe I'm sitting on the couch, sipping on a tea or something like that, and I'll put a red light panel right on my stomach, on my organs, and one of the first things I found is that it was really helpful for my sleep, in terms of sleep disturbances. There's a
The melatonin production, does it help with that at all then?
Yeah, I think that's part of it as well. You want to throw in some like tart cherry juice, some glycine, and then hit the red light. That's like a pretty potent stack for a wind down. Like you probably, if you're doing it at night, you probably don't want to get too much in your eyes, because that might cue you more
Oh,
like the wake cycle. But like I found it helpful for like putting on my organs. And the red light therapy is the only one of the strategies that we have in house here that I use every day.
I know Andrew Huberman probably talks about the adenosine and the importance of getting that sunlight at the very start of the day as well as that evening light. So I'm sure that has a similar effect. If people can't get outside, but they do have access to that sort of technology, is there a recommended dosage?
Yeah, I would say somewhere, uh, probably want to keep it about 15 to 20 minutes per session. You can do up to like 2 sessions a day, but so like if you wanted to do one in the morning, one in the evening, as like all of the strategies, from maybe aside from floating, although maybe to a certain degree, you would think that they're on a bell curve kind of in terms of dosage. And I think that could be said about a lot of things as well. It's like
So is it
there's
incremental? Can you build up to like that recommended dosage?
Yeah, no, I think you probably start with the recommended dosage on
Okay.
red light therapy. It's pretty well tolerated for most people. Um, but there's a point of diminishing returns at some point, just like you would
Right.
have some diminishing returns on, say, like the cold plunge at a certain point.
Right.
The same comes with the red light therapy to a certain degree, but most people aren't going to get there, and most people aren't going to get there in the cold plunge either. So,
And are there any contraindications?
not that I'm aware of,
All
not for
right.
red light therapy. Yeah,
All right. So take us
although
into that the fire and ice experience.
yeah. So and then the other part of the fire and ice after the sauna is the cold plunge. I think about the two as like almost like a pump in the body, like your blood vessels are dilating with the sauna and then constricting with the cold. So really moving those things around. But for the cold water immersion, what I find it most helpful for is mood boost, energy boost. I use it as a productivity hack. So I actually did a cold plunge before I do a podcast, like I did one this morning. Um,
Amazing.
yeah, so like I feel like a real cognition boost, and it very reliably pulls me out of like a low mood, low motivation state. And that's kind of where I find it most beneficial. So like maybe midday, 2 o'clock, where I'm grabbing for more coffee, like hitting a cold plunge is really helpful for me as well, because like I still want to be productive with my time here at work, and so that's another good strategy for it.
I know
Yeah.
cold plunge is all the rage. So to get the garner the therapeutic benefits, what is the recommendation as far as temperature and time?
Yeah, so most of the studies are going to be showing from anywhere from like 45 to 60 degrees in terms of temperature. We keep ours on the colder side. Um, so ours sits about 45 to 48. Um, and in terms of time, I think the numbers are probably a little bit arbitrary, but 2 to 10 is what I tell people in terms of a single session. The your first time doing it, you might want to try to hit that 2 minute mark.
Or
For
the
me,
30-second mark, right? I
yeah,
remember being at your facility and just try to dump my behind into the cold plunge because the extremities were losing blood first and it was so freezing cold. But yeah, wherever people are at, right? If they can just get their ass in there, even if it's 30 seconds,
oh yeah,
will they
for
still
sure.
receive benefit?
Yeah, I think so to a certain degree. Yeah, for me, it's like 4 to 6. I'll spend the first two like minutes just kind of like sitting in there trying to collect my breathing as best as possible.
You're Superman. You're
And
Superman.
well, I wouldn't say that. I tell people it's hard. Like every time that I do it, it doesn't get easier. It's just like you understand the practice more. You understand where you're getting yourself into, so you can kind of uh, work your way through it. And maybe that speaks volume to other aspects of life too. But
And that's how you help build resilience, right? There's a
yeah,
spiritual component to it. There's, a breath component to it, and it's extremely mental above all.
yeah, and exposure over time, I think, is part of that equation as well.
So how does a fire and ice thing work then?
So we
For
book our
like what amount of time? Yeah.
Yeah, we do our sessions in like 45-minute sessions. So
Hmm.
usually, we have some people that bounce back and forth between the two modalities. But what I think is probably the best strategy, and how I coach people to do it, is to hit the sauna first for like 25, 30 minutes. For me, when I get a good sweat going, I just want to keep it going. So I'll just do it all in one shot. And then I'll hit the cold plunge afterwards, 2 to 6 minutes. Uh,
Eh,
Whatever way you do it, you always want to end with the cold plunge, because your body like heating itself back up naturally as part of that adaptation
Right.
mechanism. Yeah.
And do you recommend any sort of breath work? I know there's the whole Wim Hof thing and the holotrophic breathing, or is it just, mindful, slow, deep inhales and exhales through the nose? What kind of recommendation do you give to beginners or anybody who comes to the spa?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's value in playing around with that. And um I think if you can work on that, I think that's great. For your first, few times, you might just be trying to hang on and just, slow your breathing down, whatever way that actually happens. Um, and I think that's part of the cool thing about kind of what we do here as well, is like um, part of these things people are going to start to figure out and play around with on their own. We have people that are like uh, that are dunking underwater, like their head underwater, like every minute. We have people that are getting in out for 2 minutes and then getting back in, and like so like the uh, the room is your oyster, so to say, like to kind of play around with and use as you feel best, and make a little science experiment out of it for yourself. We have a lot of people wearing trackable heart rate variability things, like the Whoop and the Oura are big now.
Yep.
So I think they're all useful. For me, the like slow inhales through the nose and just nasal breathing is the most helpful for me.
Yeah, even as a yoga and meditation teacher, my partner Joe and I, we've been hosting occasional cold plunge parties. We have one of those portable tubs that one of our friends purchased, and it's a really fun experience to do it as a group and almost like this competitive aspect of it, just timing each other. And it was so interesting to see each and every person's response. But for me, oddly enough, reciting Shakespeare out loud got me through it and enabled me to stay in the longest. So, that's always fun too, just the community aspect of it and getting your friends together and seeing what happens.
That's so
So,
cool. I love that. For me, what I do is I have a Rubik's Cube in there, and I just solve the Rubik's Cube while I'm sitting in there.
yeah.
And so that takes me a couple minutes, any sort of like we have an Alexa in there, so playing some music is helpful. Really any sort of distraction. And if I have solved the Rubik's Cube and I still want to sit in there for longer, like doing some like long multiplication math problem in my head, something to kind of take my mind off the cold, I think is helpful. And other
Yeah.
times I'm just kind of embrace the suck that is the cold and stick
Yeah,
with
that's it. Embracing the suck, building resilience,
it.
right?
Yeah, for sure.
Let's move on to the sensory deprivation tank. I don't really like to call it that. Not very welcoming. I love to just call it a float tank. And
Yeah.
I love that you guys have the option not to have it covered for people who've maybe experienced some sort of trauma or, are really uncomfortable doing that. So if you can just talk a little bit about that treatment, that modality for healing, its benefits, how it works, and so
Yeah.
forth and
So
so on.
so the float tank, if you can imagine, you're laying in a giant tub where your arms and legs aren't really reaching the side. So and you're in about 10 inches of water with 800 to 1,000 pounds of magnesium sulfate in there. So um, you float at about ear level, like you're in the Dead Sea. The destimulation part of it is that you're in there with no light, no sound. You're not really feeling touch or the effects of gravity. The water temperature is skin temperature, and the air temperature is controlled as well. So you're kind of meshing as one in this water. So it's a pretty unique environment in terms of meditative space, but in a like a mental kind of reset space. But what you're also doing is your body's taking in some of this transdermal magnesium as well, and you're getting that full body relaxation from the warmer water temperature as well. So a lot of healing properties with associated with it. A lot of people find that it's helpful for their sleep, um, just clarity of thought, the way they kind of perceive life. And I think similar to the cold plunge, it's a good way to kind of break up the automated processes of life, that we kind of get ourselves in these cycles where we just kind of are almost like automated in our processes. I mean, you could think about that like, you know, just picking up our phone out of automation, like in like scrolling randomly. And we all have these things that we deal with, and sometimes these loops in our lives can have a negative feedback loop. Um, so breaking that up is I think is a really good strategy tool to kind of reframe the way you're seeing things, the way you're dealing with things. We have an open pool style, like you mentioned. There's a couple different ways to float. There's open pool style, which means like nothing's covering over top of you, and then there's the pods, which you kind of like pull yourself enclosed in. So we chose that way just because it's a little less barrier to entry, like you said, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the fact, yeah, focusing on the habitual patterns, whether it's reaching for, a piece of bread or scrolling the internet. It's just a great way to get into that meditative space and to feel that serene, relaxing effect of the magnesium. It's so important for the body. So if we can just talk a little bit about what magnesium does and how a large portion of the population is deficient in it.
Yeah. I mean, if you look it up, it's going to say something like 300 enzymatic processes that magnesium is important for. But I think it's probably even more than that. You can see it as a cofactor for a lot of different pathways in the body, pathways that deal with mood, pathways that deal with detoxification, pathways that deal with DNA repair. And so it's just like, it's one that is almost like the low hanging fruit in terms of minerals that, you know, you could probably recommend people to, give it a try, whether it be foot soaks or supplemental magnesium or topical magnesium. It's one of those things that I think most people can play around with without really any um, too much issue with them. Some people might tolerate different forms of magnesium in terms of supplemental form better, but it's something that I think has a lot of benefit in terms of using. We have people that um, use the float for various things, but sleep disorders, anxiety. Um, we have someone that has like a hypoxic injury that like is dealing with headaches, migraines, and then autoimmune issues as well. We have people from all walks of life using all of our services.
Yeah, so anybody listening to this, I hope you get on it, especially if you're visiting the Southwest Florida area or you live here. Definitely give these guys a shout out. Go check out their services. I'd like to just dive into your personal experience a little bit. Just take me through the really short story of your life and how you got into holistic health, wellness, healing, helping others improve their life. Just give us a little rundown of how that all started, where it began, and what you hope to accomplish with this business and what you do in the world.
Yeah, so part of we'll start with the business and kind of work backwards. But part of
Yeah.
what we did with this business is like we thought like what strategies have been useful for me. Um, if I was gonna like have access to all of these things in my house, like what would that look like? We want them to be useful, and we wanted them to be something that like I would regularly use. So that's kind of how some of these came to be. Like floating is something that I did before we we started the business, and I found real benefit in terms of just like creating that space for me. Some people, it's like anything else but some people have more of a challenge, like just getting into a meditative space or spending time alone with themselves, like on their own. And obviously there's the practice to it, it's exposure to it. But what setting aside time to float, it kind of creates that space for you and almost forces you to kind of be there with yourself. Um, so that was one of the reasons that we started that. Um, I guess for me, I've always been curious as to what I could accomplish. Um, Mostly that stems from like a physical sports kind of background. Like I wanted to see like um, how could I optimize performance? Is there anything I'm missing in terms of strength and conditioning at the gym? I've always been into sports. I played soccer. I got into mixed martial arts, fought a few times professionally, um, weightlifting, CrossFit, all of the above. So for me, it was like I wanted to squeeze out all of me into that as I could. And so um, understanding that that's a holistic approach to that is kind of where that comes from. So I wanted to, make sure that I dive into the best nutrients for my body, the best recovery strategies, the strength and conditioning strategies as well. And as you go across time, you start to extract out what's relevant, what's helpful, and and when you have all of these tools, it's like you're building up your toolbox over time. And as you have all of these tools, you can start to kind of flow in harmony with them, and understand what's relevant. It's like you're painting a picture in real time. And so that's the cool thing, is you got to know where to start, but being able to kind of put all the pieces together is kind of has been my motivation in all of that. And so hopefully that's portrayed in what I do here and portrayed in the work, and hopefully like giving people access to some of these tools that I found benefit in, and help them to do some of these self-experiment on their own, um, and kind of guide them in the direction as to what might be most useful. Extract all of like we talked about, the infinite combinations of strategies and supplements and lifestyle practices, and it's not going to be for everyone. Everyone's going to find their own path and be a little different, but um, I've been fortunate to see a lot of people find success with some of the things that have been helpful for me as well.
I love talking to people like you, just so, so real from the heart. Obviously, you've put the work in, you've walked your talk, and it's almost selfless service at this point, and selfish to keep it all to yourself. So definitely so happy to be connected with people like you doing good work in the world, and just so humble at that. So yeah, anything else you'd like to add to
Oh,
sharing your story?
oh, thanks so much for that. Yeah, I think that's it. I want to do my best to help people, and I think like I have to be self-aware of um, what am I doing this for? Am I driving some sort of uh, false image that like that I want to be uh, known for, or am I doing this from like a pure place where I just like really want to extract the information out and provide it to people? And I think if I'm, honestly speaking, that's the case, and I hope people see that as well.
Yeah. So I guess moving on just to some of your clients, are there any success stories that you can share with what you and Angie do, or in combination, anything that sticks out, anybody that has poured their heart out using these recovery modalities, or working with either of you or both of you, that really stand out in your mind, without, saying their name or anything like that, but any stories that you'd like to share?
Yeah. Yeah, like I talked about, from addictions to anxieties to um, like something simple as like headache affects someone's quality of life. But um, I've had people come in through here that were trying to break addictions, and use the fire and ice as part of that, like breaking up the automation, and to see them kind of regain control of their life is like amazing to see, by using some of these strategies. um, some people that really defeated with not being able to do their sport, maybe starting in physical therapy and rehabbing over there at Apex, but then also starting to use some of these strategies, and regaining some of that, some of the things that they love to do in their life, and bring that back for them. Using some of the tools here has definitely been part of it. And then just like people, leaving Live Resilient and just letting me know how impactful it is to their daily life in terms of anxiety, whether they're in a leadership position where they have to speak in front of their team, and some people have anxiety with that. So helping people be better leaders, and part of the things that we talk about is, a better you is a better us. So the more that we can work on filling our own cup, the more we're able to pour into others. We start to do that for 10, 15, 20, 30, people, and the impact is exponential in its response to Southwest Florida, to Florida in general, and further reaching than that, hopefully.
A nice huge ripple effect across the world, and
That's
yeah,
it.
just bringing our unique gifts to light and just uplifting people. I mean, that's what I'm all about. um so if you had to give either a tip or a few tips to anybody struggling with any of these things that you mentioned, what is a good jumping off or starting point for somebody who maybe is at their lowest low looking for support? What would you recommend? Where would they start if they came to you and visited your facility and they were just completely down and out? Like, where would you start? What advice would you give them?
Find a win for today, right? Um, we talked about this a little bit, a little bit is that, uh, part of it is the journey as well. And if we can start to collect little wins, there's an exponential component to that as well. You you find a little win, and you find a little hope. You build on that, one step at a time. And one of the shirts that we wear over at Apex Physical Therapy says 1% better every day. And I think that speaks a lot to, some of the strategies, is that, like, hey, although it's not linear in terms of like our way up, um, if we have that at our mind, that like, hey, we have a direction, we have an aim, we're heading towards it, then we can have some hope that things will get better.
And with the growth mindset, I know I read that on the Apex as one of the core values, and it's something that I preach a lot. And having read Carol Dweck's book, Growth Mindset, and working hard at that in my own life, I think that's a really important component or factor when somebody is, reaching from the depths of darkness and trying to find that little slither of light, is just instilling that concept that anything is possible. And if we work at it even just 1% each day, that we can get better, we will get better. And even if we can't see it in the moment, that it's going to take us to great heights. So I love that you guys have that as one of your core values over at Apex Therapy. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. That's it. Um, for sure. I think that push, starts to come from the inside once you start to feed and sow those little seeds, one seed at a time.
Yeah. So I guess just moving towards the end of this discussion, I'd love to ask my guest the same question, which is, what does free flowing health mean to you, or how would you define it, or what comes to mind when you hear those words, free flowing health?
I love that. I think it's so deep of a thought. Um, one one is obviously, free has to do with, um, free from constraints. The free flowing, you can think of like a like almost like a flow state. It's like you're working in harmony with these things. And I think what it also speaks to is that the strategies in life is always changing. Um, and so is worked for you now and what is working for you now may not be the same as it is 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, or further. So I think what's important is that um, we work on building our toolbox, right? We have strategies at our disposal that have worked for us in the past. We have some ways to kind of work in harmony with some of the strategies that we have, some of the supplements, the nutrition approaches, and put it all together when it's appropriate in our life. And it's a little different. It's throughout our life, and I think that's what's exciting about the concept of a free flowing health is that it's a little bit of an art as well. And so the meshing of the arts and the sciences, the constant curiosity of what you're capable of, and then just kind of, staying in it, and keeping the aim as to you're not yet who you could be, and you never really arrive. And so enjoy the journey, and to travel is better to arrive anyways.
That was so deep and profound. I love that. That was awesome. Yeah, just to meet people where they're at and know that we must be adaptable, and that just because one thing worked for you or I, and we have all of this wisdom and knowledge and education or whatever it is, that just meeting people where they're at and not being rigid in our attitudes or approach to saying, you need to do this, or you need to try that, or this worked for me. This is the end all be all. This is the only way. So that's what I love about what you're doing and your approach to wellness, and mine as well. So I think that's why it's a nice aligned fit to be here to have this conversation today. And yeah, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Oh man, I think that was so good. Thank you so much for for having me on, and I appreciate the opportunity to share with you and the like-mindedness of what you're doing. I'm really excited to see free flowing health and what it does, and hopefully people grab onto that concept and are along for the ride.
Yeah, that was a really great definition. And how can people find you? How can they connect with you? How can they book one of your services? So any and all information that you can share so that people can find you, even though it's kind of obvious because it says it right behind you. But
Yeah, hey, live resilient. That's what it is. If you're in Southwest Florida, you can open that up on Google Maps or whatever maps, and find us there. But our website is liveresilient.swfl.com, and our Instagram is at live.resilient.swfl. And you can find all of that pertinent information on there. Obviously, give us a call, send us a DM, and or whatever. We'd be happy to help you out.
How long have you guys been in business now?
We'll be 2 years this year,
Oh, wow.
and
Okay, so I
it
didn't
doesn't
meet you two
seem
years ago, maybe.
it doesn't seem real,
I
honestly.
yeah, I have no concept of time, but I'll definitely have to come check you guys out, bring Joe, just a little out of my neck of the woods. And definitely I work with a lot of people with struggling with a lot of, whether it's cancer or, injuries and that sort of thing, as a holistic chef and lifestyle coach. So I'll definitely have to send some people your way if they're open to it.
Hey, I would love that, and um, I love what you're doing as well. So um, we're gonna do good things.
Cool. So we'll stay connected. Thank you for your time, Jason. Hopefully we'll get Angie on the show down the line. This is just the beginning. So I appreciate you and your beingness. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Mayfig. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Free Flowing Health podcast. Your support means the world to us. Help us grow by leaving a positive rating and review. Make sure to subscribe, like, and share this podcast. If you'd like to stay connected, you can find me on social media at Free Flowing Health, or visit my website directly, freeflowinghealth.com. Wishing you a happy, healthy, and fulfilling life. Till the next time.
This podcast is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, health, or professional advice. We are not responsible for any losses, damages, or liabilities that may arise from the use of this podcast. This podcast is not intended to replace professional or medical advice. Views and opinions expressed by the guest are those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the view of the host.